So hello, everyone out there. Good evening. We're happy to have you with us tonight. Thanks for joining this virtual webinar presented by the UNH Alumni Association titled Spark Change, Session 3, Let's Do This. I'm Karina Garnis. I'm with Alumni Relations, and I'm pleased to introduce our speakers this evening. We have Cynthia Merrill, who's a UNH 98 alum. She's an author and consultant who is dedicated to strengthening literacy and tech experiences for all students. She works in diverse school communities through the U.S., coaching, training, and encouraging administrators and teachers in their practices. And we have Olivia Van Legge. Olivia, or Liv, is an author and a 9th grade student right here in Durham, New Hampshire. Liv uses technology to inspire empathy, equity, and activism. She's the creator of Liv Bits, short videos for kids and teachers about reading, thinking, and life. Liv is an international keynote speaker, and she's the co-author of Spark Change, Make Your Mark on the Digital World with her mom, Cynthia Merrill. If anyone out there has questions this evening, you can use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions live. If you have a comment, please feel free to type those into the chat box located at the bottom of your screen. And I'm sure you're eager to hear from Cynthia and Liv, so I will turn it over to them.
Great. Thank you so much for that nice introduction. Even though we've heard it 2 other times as part of this webinar, I still always chuckle that Liv's bio is so fantastic and mine sounds so mediocre.
No, it doesn't. Don't say that. Yours sounds awesome.
So welcome to our webinar tonight. We're really excited to talk to you a little bit more deeply about the Spark Change message and to really zero in, right, Liv, on this whole idea of community. So you've been hopefully on a journey with us. In our first webinar, we talked a lot about what it means to have this spark change mindset. In the second webinar, we welcomed in student voice and we introduced you to students who are out there in their own communities, making a difference with that spark change mindset. And today we really want to talk about digital tools and the way in which we can empower, hopefully all of you after spending time with us in this webinar, what is it that we can do and use to change our community? And if you've been with us through these 3 webinars in this series, you know that really we think beyond just our immediate community with the Spark Change mindset, and we think about our global community. So hopefully as we talk tonight, Liv and I can inspire you to take back to your families and to your colleagues, the people that you work with, and honestly, to really think deeply about who is it in my professional and personal life who I know will help light some sparks and help me on my mission to be a change maker. That's really the purpose of our text, is to think deeply about this change maker attitude. And we're really excited to share more specifics about that with all of you.
So, well, at the beginning of every presentation that we do, we always like to start out with a question just to really hook on our audience and to really start out what our message is going to be for this entire webinar. So our question is, how can using digital tools empower kids to change their communities and change the world?
And when we talk about tools, Liv has talked a little bit specifically about platforms that she's used, but we also want to talk back to our first webinar where we got a really focused question, right, Liv, around how Liv has evolved or changed. And we wanted to start with that because one thing about being a part of a community is recognizing how you grow and change within that community piece. And so we hope that as we work with you tonight, we can begin to think about sort of live at the beginning and then live now, right? And actually, Liv, you don't have to have those specific words. I think you just talk about it, right?
Yes. So we tried to come up with 4 words each about, just thinking about my first experience, maybe the first couple, maybe the year, the first conference that I was at, and how I was really feeling when I was there. And I remember that my first ever conference, I had 15 minutes out of my mom and her colleagues' presentation to talk about Live Bits. And so since this was my first ever experience, being surrounded by so much, just like all these incredible activists, all these people that were sharing their passions and all these presentations. So I was definitely very eager to learn so much about all of these people, and I was very energetic. I also was really focused because when I actually got to make my first ever author live bit at this conference with an author that I'm still like best friends with today, Peter Reynolds. And so I was so focused on just taking in all of the information and soaking it and then bringing it back with me, because my first conference was in Denver. So really soaking it up and then bringing it back to my own school and sharing it with my own community.
And I would say too, this idea of being a change maker and thinking about your community, I think Liv's mindset as a student presenter
Was very open.
was what?
I feel like I feel like at my school, they always use the term growth mindset. And I do think whenever you're in an environment like that, it's always super important to always have a very open mind learning.
Yeah, I think one thing to be mindful of in this Spark Change journey is that when we give students a chance to step up to the plate, oftentimes what we find out is that students do have their own voice. And when it's filtered through adults or filtered through an organization, oftentimes their message can be lost in translation. But when you hear, and last night we did another webinar with another university group, and one of the things that the Syracuse people were talking about was just this idea of authenticity. So we hope that as you think about the beginning of Live Bits, and when she's talking about being spontaneous and energetic or focused and eager, that all of those things in a change maker's mindset, in order to influence a community, we have to grow our messaging. And so over time, Liv has become more refined, right? Like she really understands now this idea of audience in a much deeper way. And so when we began to talk about that question from our very first webinar, like how have you grown your message? How have you changed? I think one of the things that's the most fascinating about watching students engage with tech and on platforms where they're sharing messages is that oftentimes students are unsure about how a community or audience will receive their message. If we're explicitly teaching students about citizenship within their community, we can extend that messaging into the digital, into their digital realm. And honestly, we've really begun to work around this idea of not saying digital citizenship anymore, but instead just
I know, because a lot
saying
of the time,
citizenship.
when you say digital citizenship, what pops into a lot of people's heads is digital safety. And so I think that it's really important to really separate the different terms. There's digital citizenship, and then there's also digital safety. So digital citizenship isn't always about making sure, don't do this, don't do that. It's about thinking about all the ways that you can connect and actually grow your community by having it be global instead of maybe just being in your school or just being in your town.
Well, we hope that as you think about the idea, we're certainly mindful of all of the factors that keep students safe, and that's for sure. But when students have a message that's authentic and their own, I feel like safety will actually follow them, that they'll make safer choices because they're not following people who are just celebrities. Instead, they've identified students like the students we shared with you in our second webinar. They start following students who are also, really inspirational to them. When Liv first began her LiveBit journey back at the beginning, there were very specific pieces of information that she focused on. And I think in order to be a change maker in your community, you have to think about, what is it that how can my message benefit this community both on a small scale, and then how could I actually think about my message in a larger way? I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about these ideas.
So each week I make videos for kids and teachers called Live Bits, where I talk about reading, thinking, and life. And each of my Live Bits has the same style and the same purpose. So of course my Live Bit videos are a reflection of my thinking, whether it's about a book, about something that's going on in the world, about a passion that I have, about a person that I admire. So not only is it about reflection, but it's also about really putting it into a short amount of time and just sharing what I want to say with the world without making it super long. Because
hence the name Bit.
Yes, hence the name Live Bit, a bit of my thinking. So a lot of the time when I do school visits and I work with students on making their own videos, sometimes they can actually turn out quite long. And I know that if there are any teachers in here, if you really think about it, you wouldn't want to have to go through like 96-minute videos.
Yeah.
So it's super important, that synthesis piece on making it short and sweet. And then lastly, the most important piece in my opinion is the feedback, because that's how you can keep on making your bits better and better every single week. When you have a global community that can give you feedback like that, it can help you grow your passion and grow your message.
So I think yesterday somebody asked Liv, what is it, Liv, that you want to do when you grow up? And I think even since the beginning of Liv Bits and to right now, of course, right? When you ask a child, like, what do they want to be when they grow up? It's so interesting how Liv
has changed, because I think that we thought about this. And if you had asked me that question when probably 4 or 5 years ago, when I first started, I would have immediately, no questions asked, said, I want to be an ichthyologist, study where I would study sharks. And now that really I have evolved and my message has evolved, I thought about it for a second, and really it has changed.
Well, of course, like students are going to grow and change their message. In order to be a change maker, your message can grow with you.
Exactly. And also another question that I might sometimes get is how is Liv Bits going? Are you going to keep it going when you get older, maybe when you're in college? And I think that the Liv Bit message, when you have something as powerful as that, you should carry it with you, and it will change as you change.
So what you said last night, what you want to be when you grow up.
I'm
sure everybody wants to know.
So what I want to do when I
how you've grown and changed.
One of my ideas was actually that something that I could kind of keep the Liv Bit going is that I could become a podiatrist. And if you didn't know this, I am a very serious ballerina. And so even though I may not want to become a dancer, I could specifically work with dancers and make little bits talking about how they can help their feet, how they can wear their point shoes correctly. And I also want to have a big account where I make tons of not only videos, but also maybe make products that can help dancers. So I thought that was also a great way to not only keep my message and still sharing it out with the world, but also keep my passion for dance going, even if I don't become a ballerina.
So I feel like this is a really important part of being in a community, that when we think about purpose with students and the work that we do, the conversations that we have within our own family, maybe with our own children, or with when we think about in our classrooms and how we direct students, that for Liv, a really important understanding and premise of all of this, of the 3 webinars together, is that Liv never imagines a time in her life when tech isn't central to the message of who she is as a person. And so this idea of identity is so closely related to the work that she's done on Liv Bits. And she's not exceptional. Every student has a desire to make a difference in their own community or in the world, right? Sometimes they think big. If you talk to a kindergartner, they think really big. And so we hope that as you imagine yourself having conversations around technology and messaging, we hope that you encourage the messaging to grow over time and to morph and change and just, really
grow
make you right that purpose to grow with you. Oh, so Liv always adds these little,
I always like to add animations, and then I don't tell you that they're there, so it's kind of a little bit strange sometimes. But here is an example of one of my favorite Liv Bit videos, because it was made with one of my bucket list authors. That's what I like to call them, authors that are like my absolute dream to make Liv Bits with, and this is with Mo Willems.
So actually, who is still on your bucket list before we go? Because
these are just a couple of one of my all-time I would dream to make a bit with the DJ, because I love the Harry Potter series, and I also love the Harry Potter movies. Also, you could drop in the chat which Harry Potter house you are. I am a Gryffindor. You are a
Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Liv at the beginning.
Hi, this is Liv from Liv Bits. Have you ever had a chance to meet one of your idols? Well, today I'm with the awesome children's book author, Mo Willems. If you like books.
Mo Willems?
If you like books with piggies, elephants, pigeons, and people with crazy names like Reginald Von Gooby Dooby, then you should check out the Mo Willems books. But I think most of you already have. Mo is the kind of author who values kid voices. And if you don't believe me, you should check out all the awesome tweets by the pigeon on Twitter. Twitter is the perfect place for the pigeon to share his ideas and his opinions. And I have to say, I practically grew up reading Mo Willems books. And a special thanks for inspiring kids just like me. Keep reading, keep thinking, and keep watching Liv Bits for more ideas about you Bex.
That was great.
Every single time I watch the bit, even though I've probably seen it a million times, I always look at my little hands and how I am so nervous, because at this event there were over 600 people in this huge school gymnasium, because Williams is a pretty popular author, and his books are amazing. But
It's already a change
yes,
maker, right?
by the time that we got up to the front of the line, because whenever I'm making a bit with an author, we always like to stand at the end just in case something goes wrong. That way, there's no one waiting behind us. So as you can imagine, 600 people later, we finally get up there, and I was so scared because Mo Willem said, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll make a bit with you. Let me just go to the bathroom first." He didn't come back from the bathroom for 20 minutes. So we were freaking out. We were like, "Oh my gosh,
True.
he left." It's okay. He didn't leave. He came back and he made the bit with me. But you can still see the whole time I'm like crossing my fingers. Afterwards, though, he made one tweet saying that I was a phenom and that my younger sister Charlotte was the cutest kid ever. Because Charlotte, my younger sister, was dressed up as Buddy the Elf and she was handing out candy canes to everyone that was in the line. And from that one tweet that Mo Willems made, one tweet, I gained probably about 10,000 followers that day.
And why is that important to this idea
That's
of community?
It's important because Mo Willems helped me grow my global community. And I got to meet so many new people who shared the same passions as me. And one thing that's so valuable is that when students, every single student has something that they could go on and on and on about. Trust me, they do. And once you find that thing, you don't need to be super nervous about putting them on big global platforms, because once they can actually connect with someone, or maybe they have their favorite book and they connect with that author and they send out a tweet and they send a question or something, authors love your feedback. And so if that author responds to them, it's like literally life-changing.
Yeah. And not on their own account, right? Like through a
through a school account or a class account.
Right, where you can have it monitored, because I think that's another important message is that Liv is exceptional in the sense that she had these opportunities, yes, on these platforms, but she was also monitored, right? So we have a whole safety side of the work that we do, and it's really important to us for teachers to know that you teach the way students interact by having opportunities for kids to share that are authentic. And some of these platforms are places where, of course, we need to be monitored, but you also need to be modeling that within your classroom work. Yeah, go ahead.
In our book, Spark Change, we actually mention how I have a digital crew. And a digital crew is something that I have, which is a group of adults that I trust to help keep me safe online. I also have a guardian shark who circles around the social media waters and helps keep me safe online. Now, you could be that person for your student. You could be that one member of their digital crew that could help keep them safe online. And it's always good to have a monitor. My mom monitored all of my posts, probably from when I was about 8 until I was 10 years old. I say, "Mom, is this good?" She said, "Yep, she's all good." She would always check it. And now I don't need her anymore.
Maybe a little bit.
Sometimes.
And this is a really nice segue.
Full circle moment
with thinking about, what is our digital future when we're thinking about community and thinking about messaging for the world, because these ladies
are two of my global teachers. I like to hashtag them by the location. So on the left is my Taiwan teacher, Panna, and on the right is my Malaysia teacher, Erica. And they actually ran into each other on the stairs at a huge conference in New York City. And so they decided to take a picture together. And do you see me right in the middle there? They zoomed in on my Twitter profile and took a picture.
Because they wanted Liv to be there with them, right? So this whole idea that Liv has these teachers that aren't just in where we live in Durham, New Hampshire, right? She has the teachers that she sees at school each day, but then she has this whole other part of her Liv Bit work. In fact, I think I know that Christine is out in the audience. We saw her in the chat. And so, and she's also, if Liv had to say, that's my Missouri teacher, right?
Yes.
Because that's her location. So we started doing that when Liv was really young as a way for Liv to understand the geography of how her message carried, right? Because Liv would say, "I have no idea, Mama, where Malaysia is." And so it began this really incredible conversation around the use of the tech tool on her website when it would pin a person.
It actually puts a little red dot every single time someone visits my website from a new country. It pings them. So I'll be like, "Whoa, someone just viewed my website from Sri Lanka. Where's that?" And so then I would research about that. I maybe would watch Brain Pop.
Or sometimes it was a direct, it was a message through Liv's website where the teacher would say, "I just used your videos in my classroom in Malaysia with my students." And so all of a sudden, I think we shared in some of our earlier, in one of our earlier sessions, maybe in session 1, that Liv's work actually went viral in Asia. And so, which
I was
is,
planning on saying it later, but I really wanted to get it out now. Is that when I first started my Live at Work, actually schools in Asia were using my videos before anyone.
yeah, we shared that
And-
though, I think in our first session about that. And that's what's so crazy, right? They were
It
using
is.
it for their own instruction
And-
around English.
Yes, the students were giving me feedback on, hey, Liv, do you think that you can maybe talk a little bit slower? Because I never thought about their perspective, actually using my videos to help them learn English.
And that was because of Panna, right? Who's in this picture, her Taiwan teacher. She used her videos in her classroom, and because she's a very well-connected teacher online, once she started to share Liv's work, it began, right? That's exactly what happens on platforms. When you have a message and you're a change maker, your community becomes exponentially bigger by one person. It should also be noted that these two teachers were part of Liv's digital crew. And what that means is we identified them early on in Liv's work when she was first beginning to post about her work as people that we could trust, that could help provide a safety net should anybody ever comment in a foul way or in a way that wasn't very kind. And we have to be completely honest with you, there really wasn't any buddy that was doing that. I think it happened twice in the last 5 years that have been, the most concerning, like a really mean comment or a mean reshare of Liv's work. But otherwise, the amount of good that Liv has received on platforms
outweighs the bad by
Yeah.
a million
Yeah.
percent.
So we focus and hyper focus so much on student safety, but we often don't share the power of the messaging. When Liv is getting feedback online, it is a powerful reflective device. That feedback becomes part of her story. And so these two teachers were pivotal, and she's not kidding. They were at a massively big conference and they decided to meet up because they both knew they were what they called super fans of Liv. And so they met up and they were like, we have to have Liv here, right? So they whipped out the phone. What makes the best thing is to like have her little icon or picture from her profile. And they were like, look, we're all together, right? So this idea of community, like this is such a lovely demonstration of that. Two people coming from the other side of the world that ended up at the same conference in New York City, that then have to bring the person who really brought them together, because otherwise they wouldn't have known each other. They would have been passing on the stairs, not knowing each other, right? They knew each other because of Liv Bits. And so it's pretty powerful to think about this idea of community being so much bigger when you're connected by something that you love in common. Like think about your favorite television show and the person that you want to go and talk about it with, right? That you've been binge watch something on your favorite channel, and suddenly you find that person that you can share it about, or you look online and you look for a hashtag that's specific to that show, right? All of a sudden your community can stay small, right? With the person that you are interacting with about that show. Or you start to look at a curated hashtag and you're like, oh my goodness, there are these massive super fans who have some of the same opinions as I do, or different opinions about the show that I hadn't thought about. So these ladies only knew each other because they saw that they knew each other's handles, and they knew from a thread of talking with Liv about a Liv Bit video that she made that they would be in New York at the same time. It's a pretty amazing demonstration of that idea of community coming together.
I've actually never gotten to meet Erica in person. I have gotten to meet Panna before.
Yes, and actually Erica was here in our webinar earlier in the first
Yes.
webinar, and also in the second webinar, because she's on the other side of the world.
Their school is already starting.
Right. She's actually in the morning, and she's actually teaching. She already started school and she's teaching right now. So she can't be here in the third webinar, but that's pretty neat, right?
Oh,
The
miss
way
you.
in which these pieces sort of came together. I love your animations. I never know. So we wanted to just show you the way in which we grow community explicitly too, when we think about Spark Change and how kids can
Analyze all of those apps that they use to help create.
sometimes when she finishes my thought, it freaks me out, right? So yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
it's like
I really wanted to get something in. I felt like you were talking for a very long time.
no, it's okay. So this is an example of a kindergarten anchor chart, and this anchor chart was around tools that Liv had introduced to them during a school visit. And so she demonstrated the tool, and then the students over the course of the week working with her began to think about the purpose of the tool. And so in order to be think about how we share out in communities, we have to also consider the types of tools that we use in order to be able to think about what's best for our message. So for Liv, it's making videos, but there are so many other tools that kids could use within their messaging. And so we just love the fact that this anchor chart really demonstrates the student thinking piece, right? Here's the name of the app. Here's the icon as part of their reading, right? Kids are so great about reading the icons. I know, what is that? All of a sudden I got a little allergy tickle too. And then, what's the student thinking around the purpose? So these create and share tools just become a really awesome way for us to begin to discuss, hey, Christine, how do you use this app? What's the purpose for you? And how can we use it as a class? Hey, Liv, what's ChatterKid to you? How do you use that ChatterKid in order to make silly videos that are going to make, everybody laugh at group share, or
Isn't that
make
the
your
one that
family?
you can take a picture and put a mouth on it and
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah.
All of these apps really do remind me of an app that's really useful called Clips. Now, Clips is actually an app that's preloaded on all Apple devices, and it's one that I use a ton during school visits when sometimes they don't have access to other places, other platforms like Flipgrid. But what I love most about Clips is that they can actually stop and go with their video. And so they can do a little bit of it and then stop and then a little, because sometimes it can be kind of daunting looking at saying all the stuff they have, they're thinking about all the stuff that you just say in their head, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But when you have Clips, you can do it in separate little pieces. And that's what I think is so nice.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we explore tools with students, and that we
Don't just stick
explore.
to
Yeah.
always try to find new apps that maybe you never know, maybe you might even like them better.
But also just exploring, Liv, right, the how kids understand the purpose, because perhaps maybe and this is the truth too, sometimes I don't understand how an app works the way Liv understands how an app works. And so
Like Roblox.
yeah, like Roblox, that's a great example, right?
Or
Like
Minecraft,
I don't get the whole prom thing and whatever you do, the
Royal
ball
High.
thing, Royal High, yeah, right. So I mean, to hear her talk about purpose when she's using a specific app or a gaming opportunity, it helps me understand, well, as a researcher, right, because I'm interested in that, I'm her thinking. And so it provokes me to think about the types of questions that I can use to engage. And so that's exactly what this teacher did. This teacher began to think about the way in which the provocation, right, like how I enter into a conversation with a student who's using Pixie. If I'm knowing that students are saying they mostly use the purposes to record their thinking and to draw pictures and to take pictures, and to share the work when they're using Pixie apps, it really guides me as an adult to be able to interact with that child or that student in a much deeper way. And so we hope that by sharing the way other teachers have made sense of purpose, will also inspire you to think about, that larger context of purposefulness when you have a message and you want to share it. And I do think one thing I will say about the work that Liv has done is that oftentimes kids helping each other creates this really democratic sense of belonging. And there can be no better messaging when we talk about community than to talk about this idea that, technology can democratize conversations.
Also, I think that kids will listen to kids sometimes more willingly than they would kids listening to adults or teachers.
Or even just because maybe kids know that you're thinking about the tech in a very
similar way.
Yeah, or a fresher way. Like I have to learn the tech in a different way. Like I have to attach it to something that I've had a previous experience with. Whereas okay, let's not talk about Dropbox. She's outing me. But right. So I just have to think about it more deeply. and I have to connect it in a different way. So I do feel like students are such big risk takers with new apps, like
Oh,
those
they're not
point and
afraid.
click, and yeah, and I think it's so cool. This picture really demonstrates just this like caucusing of ideas, right? They're coming together, they're using this Pixie app, and then trying to make sense of
Trying
it
to figure it
together.
out. Maybe they even find new things. Thing that I notice a lot about whenever I'm working with kids, that they're not afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I Oh, that's a really important point, Liv. That this idea that you know, I think with tech and adults, we come at it with like really seeking out an answer. The tech
And
has to
also
provide an answer.
almost like a sense of caution.
Yeah.
A little bit of like a
Whereas kids come at it with like, I'll just understand this. Let me like try it, right? Like, and they create an understanding where we're looking for like answers for like, well, what did we use this tech for? How is this important? And honestly, I
just use the
yeah,
use the app, explore it.
right. And we have a whole part in
Create.
our book where we talk about, Liv would always say, oh, I'm doing appsploration. And she just like take, where she'd take a new app that we wanted to use with students that she really loved. And she began, we called it she called it appsploration. I'm exploring this app, like purposefully using an app. And because she had thought about her own thinking, she had this little process of risk taking that I had to learn. I had to learn by watching her. So I hope that you consider this idea of democratizing tech experiences, that it can bring people together in really explicit ways. Of course, on platforms, even if you're an old person like me and you're using Facebook, looks like Facebook, or you're using other tools, right? Social media platforms, it democratizes in the sense that it brings you together with people that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see day to day. And that in and of itself can bring, can spur conversations. And there are other problematic things, of course, right, on those platforms. But I do feel like when kids have been taught how to think through tech, they actually will explore platforms in a much deeper way, in a much more purposeful way than maybe some of us who are coming at tech looking for an answer. Like, how do I solve this problem? I just want an answer. Somebody make this. Isn't there an app for that? Whereas kids are like, no, I'll create the app. I'm not sure if there is one. Like, let's create it, right? Or let's.
We have a question from the audience, Cynthia. And Liv, Martha is curious if you guys have a favorite app or a couple of favorite apps that you could share with us.
Definitely.
So I know that I mentioned Clips earlier, but my all-time favorite app is definitely Padlet. I love using Padlet so much because it has so many different options for creation. Not only can you create a video, but you can also add text. You can take selfies, you can draw, you can do a voice thread. Now, what I love the most about the voice thread option is that sometimes, especially kids in middle school, sometimes they kind of get a little bit self-conscious about seeing themselves on camera. So maybe if the first couple times they're making their bit, they don't feel really comfortable, they can just do a voice thread and just have their voice.
And actually, Liv really came to that because through the work that she did with other kids and like really asking and listening to them about, because through this pandemic too, I think teachers they did more appsploration.
Well, they kind of had to.
They had to, but I think what also happened is it was like almost app fatigue, because kids were asked to do we love Flipgrid. That's another one that we absolutely adore.
Yes.
Because it is a video app that is about sharing your thinking, and
it also has that same feature as Clips where you can kind of.
Yes, and that was added later on after they had the app out in beta form, and then they did some tests on it, and they realized that kids didn't actually like to sit and just like make a video. They maybe wanted to rehearse, and they added sticky notes to it so they could hold their thinking, all these like lovely ways in which kids could use the Flipgrid app. But also,
and the first one was Padlet.
We had Padlet, and then we love Flipgrid, and we love Clips. She mentioned Clips already. And also we can go back to, for sure, Pixie is one of our favorite. That's a younger app as far as like what we would use. This is a kindergarten list of apps. They can certainly grow up, right? And be used in other grades, but it's definitely one for the K2 sort of, or even preschool to second grade kind of set. What else would we say? You just mentioned other ones too. You said Roblox. That's a gaming app.
Well, yeah, these apps aren't so much for like making videos, but some of the apps that I just personally love to use all the time just to create. I love using Roblox. I love using Minecraft. Minecraft definitely is more like geared towards creation because you create your own worlds and you get to build anything you want. It's kind of like the digital version of Legos.
Yeah. Oh, that's
but-
a great. I've never heard you say that.
Yeah, I just kind of thought came up with that.
Yeah.
But Roblox is a little bit more about collaboration. You can create your own games on Roblox, but that's not the goal. Roblox has over millions and millions of games. You can search for
Martha
anything
has
that-
started her on. Now she's going to go on about all the ways she loves the apps.
anything that you want. And they have super popular games and you get to play with other people. You can have friends. And that's what I love most about Roblox is being able to play with other people
You
that are
didn't
in
say
real
this
time.
one either, and you love that one. You
Brain
didn't say-
Pop.
Yeah.
I mentioned Brain Pop earlier. Like I watch Brain Pops for fun sometimes.
I would say this, that
They're
everything.
great little bits of thinking because sometimes when your teacher gives you this like big long thing to read, and I'm like, I just like search up in Brain Pop and find it in like 2 minutes. And 37
Actually,
seconds.
everything Liv knows about the economy and like what was the ones that you were watching? Oh, taxes.
I was watching the text one. I was also watching the one about mortgages. They're actually very interesting.
But yes, she watches Brain Pop for that. So we that's
Little
definitely
bits of
one of our,
information.
and we also like for creation too. What is the green screen one?
With little octopus.
Yeah,
I know which one you're talking about, but it lets
Doing.
create.
it's doing.
Yes, it lets you create your own little characters, your own little animations.
Yeah, so we use that a lot with kids for the stop.
I also love 3D
Animation.
Bear. 3D Bear
geez.
is
Okay, so
okay.
yeah, we've
So
given
one
you lots.
that's last one. 3D Bear is where you can actually create your own little 3D characters and then have them. You can like use them in video. You can use them in photos. You can put them in your.
And you can cast them from the app. So Liv likes to cast a 3D shark, of course, right? So you can make the shark walking in your real space. So we
Or
could
you can cast.
we
like,
could cast
words
up
or
a shark with that app that could actually be sitting here with us in this webinar. So definitely check out 3D Bear. It's a really
3D
incredible
Bear, Doing,
app.
Brain Pop, Roblox, Minecraft, Padlet, Flipgrid, Clips.
That was it, I think.
Pixie, Draw and Tell, Chatter Kid.
What-
Chatter Kids.
Yes, Chatter Kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So now Martha wants to know, but how do you know which of those are safe?
What's that? Say that, we didn't hear you.
Martha wants to know, how do you know which of those are safe?
Oh,
to
so
use?
all the apps that we just shared are all COPA compliant. So we would never share an app. Actually, we would never demonstrate an app or encourage students or teachers to use an app that doesn't follow the COPA compliance. So all of those have already been vetted and follow the very specific rules for safety. So yeah, any of those are COPA compliant. Those are the ones that we share in our presentations.
Thank you.
And we do want to say too that,
I'll go.
oh,
That it's super important that, especially these days, that we erase the line between digital spaces and real spaces. A lot of the time, people think about them as like they're so separate, but really, they're exactly the
Yeah.
same. You should always be the same. That's one thing that I always talk about with LibBits is that your posts should define who you are and that they're a mirror to the world. So how you act on social media should be the same way that you act in
or even
real
in
life.
gaming situations, right? Like Liv brought up Minecraft, and one thing I want to say about Minecraft as an app where kids are creating, we share apps that we love that are creation based. So the apps that we mentioned earlier are all opportunities for kids to collaborate with each other or to create with each other or both. And within that space, this collaboration space, there's a set of like behavior, right? Like that we hope people would follow. If you're creating, even in a Google Doc, like I watched one time my son working in a Google Doc, and there was a person in his group that kept deleting things that other people were, typing in. And actually, it's like you wouldn't do that if you were sitting side by side and you were writing
erase
something
someone's-
on a pad of paper, right? So this whole idea that we have to be super explicit with students about what it means to collaborate in digital spaces. And to be honest with you, it should be the same behavior whether the person was sitting beside you. And so, but being explicit and demonstrating and showing and not assuming that students know that, and showing student examples of students out there who are doing some of the work. Why do kids love unboxing videos so much on YouTube? They love them because there's a specific way that kids draw other kids in, right, to the video when they're unboxing. And so even that as an example, analyzing a video, what makes Liv's videos popular, or the message resonate. It's there's a specific thing that we can analyze. So this idea of digital space and being a change maker, having a message, sharing it out in a community, we can explicitly teach those types of behaviors. And to be honest with you, they're just like good citizen behaviors, right? It's like what makes us a good friend and a good classmate and a good colleague and a good member of our family. I say all the time to my own children in my home, like, this is just part of being a family, right? Like when they have to do something that they really don't enjoy, I'm like, sorry, but being a part of a family sometimes is that you have to engage in this way. And so we want to be explicit with those behaviors for sure. I don't know if you probably should take this
So
one.
not only do I create lots of videos, but another piece of Libbit content that I have are my Liv's Lists. Liv's Lists are a series of book recommendations with themes that I created, because a lot of the times when I did school visits, I would always get questions about one of my favorite books, book recommendations.
It's the number one question
The
Liv gets, which makes sense.
Number one question ever. So I decided that I would create something. I would choose a theme and I would find a bunch of books, a mixture, maybe chapter books, picture books, something that all students would love, and then I would post them. This one is all about the beauty of Haiti and Africa, and I actually have one of my favorite books on here is a book of poems written by kids that actually live in Haiti, and I'll share with you one of the poems in just a second. I'm gonna let my talk.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was just going to say, I was going to add on to the, sometimes Liv's lists are directly related to, being asked a question by an audience member, like, what's your favorite book? Or what's,
Like,
what are your,
I have this Liv's List for you.
yeah, what's your top favorite, shark books or whatnot, because kids are interested in Liv's recommendations. And so, yeah, this was in response to it. And sometimes it's in response to like confusing information that Liv is hearing like out in the world. And so this Liv's List actually went pretty quickly viral because it was in response to something that she heard politically, our somebody in politics saying about these countries, and it confused her, right? So she made this list when she was 10 and was like, in response to like, I don't like what people are saying, what this person is saying about these countries. And so I can provide a list where we can learn more about the country. And hey, there's this really cool person that I didn't know about that has this beautiful quote that I can also think a little bit more deeply. And kids were really amazing, because kids would say, how come this book didn't make your list? Do you know this book? And sometimes it's that Liv didn't know it, right? She has her personal, her person at the library that she goes to, and she says, I want to read lots of books because I'm making a Liv's list about Africa and Haiti. And then, luckily we can tote those books and she can read them. They make the list because they've made an impact on Liv's heart. And so, yeah, this book in particular, right? If you don't know this book, it's just one that we hope you would check out at the library and share with your students or your children. Go ahead,
Sure. So pretty flowers in my country are for me like pink butterflies that smile at the sun. And I don't know why I felt like that when I first read it, so it kind of resonated with me a little bit, but it gave me major heartbeats, and I loved it so much. I was like, I need to have this in every single presentation that I do.
Yeah, because it was written by a fourth grader. So thinking about this Haiti book of poems that's written by children, and really it's their perspective of their country and what's the most important things to
and
them.
how they see it and how they see the beauty of it.
Well, and also like that awesome student voice, right? Like we really, there's no better person to tell the story than that firsthand account. And so it just provided us with more information than maybe we would have had if we hadn't, approached that text. So we wanted to share with you, just to take you out a little bit more quickly before we wrap up, about some other ways in which you can make an impact on your community. And if you don't know Shannon Miller and the work that she does out at Van Meter School in Iowa, we hope that you look up Shannon. But she had this work. Yeah, she has this. So she is the the most followed library media specialist in the world. So she just has a massive following, and she does incredible work for this little tiny itty bitty school in Iowa. And she has like helped those students see themselves as like true change agents in a global community. So here's this farming community in Iowa making this massive impact, and always at the heart of it, this is why we love her so much, right? Our books. So this specific book helped her students create their own mural that was community based. And so this book became the impetus behind their own mural and the style of very specific artists. And what became really powerful is they wanted it to be like the book. So if you didn't catch the name of that book, it's about a traveling mural. And so then Shannon's students sent their own, where's the little, okay. Shannon's Van Meter School mural then made its way to all of these places, and they tracked it, right? Using a specific tracking app. And so they were able to show and send, right? The agreement was that Shannon would send it to another library media specialist, and then it would live in their space for a little while. And then that library media specialist, right, would identify another library media specialist somewhere else in the United States. So their little Van Meter community mural then began like traveling the United States and up into Canada, right? And the students were able to they were able to blog about their experience. They were able to learn about other places that they hadn't visited. They were able to think about the kind of people. Okay, so we're all Americans, but what does that mean when this traveling mural goes to different places? What does that mean about our own sense of self and our identity? Like, wow, there's, some really different and diverse stories that we want to share with everybody. So they began blogging about it and just really being mindful about sharing their message with this community blog. It was pretty amazing. And it's, again, just this really awesome opportunity for them to share their message from their school. You want to talk about this?
Yes,
I love her.
So when I was doing a school visit, a little girl came up to me and showed me what her passion was. And her passion was making LOL doll based bookmarks. Now,
if you don't know LOLs,
if you don't know LOL dolls, then
you have to look it up.
There are like these. My younger sister Charlotte probably has over 100 LOL dolls. And they're one of those little dolls that come on little surprise balls. So when they're about that big, and they have sparkle hair, they have sparkle outfits, and they're all done.
And they're an LOL surprise, so you don't know what you're getting.
So this little girl decided to take all of her LOLs and take her friends' LOLs, and she would design all of these bookmarks based off of them.
Yeah, but she like reinvented it, right? Because LOLs are like itty bitty.
LOLs are literally,
but she
their head
decided,
is huge and they have little bodies.
Yeah,
she decided to make them long enough to actually have a little head sticking out of the book.
Right. So she just started her own little business. And so when she brought these up and shared this entire folder full of these amazing redesigned, reimagined LOL dolls, but instead she had hers were for book surprises, right? That this was like a little journey that this LOL was going to take with you into your book. And so the little head would stick out. We just thought, like, how creative is the student to have taken her passion
and then to take in something so popular like that everybody knows, and then to kind of make it her own a little bit, and then she add her own little twist on it.
She worked with Liv, and they digitized
her. Animated it. We made a little movie.
Right. They animated her drawings, and they made a little movie that was related to her creations. So just really thinking about that passion around drawing, and oh my gosh, they're just so they were so amazing to us to see that. And this little girl was 8. So when you just think about the ways in which kids can just like grow our ideas about tech and about creation, it's amazing.
Helped lots of students create their own bits about their passions, and we like to say that I'm a mentor tech for them, because they're a mentor techs, and then they're also mentor techs. So I'm helping you use these different platforms, and I'm teaching you how to use a platform like Padlet, how to use a platform like Flipgrid or Clips, and I'm teaching you how you can actually take your bit and make it into your own, like she did with her LOL dolls.
Yeah.
How they can add their own little twist on it, how they can make their own catchphrase, how they can have their own passion that they talk about, and how they can add that into the catchphrase.
And I will say,
How they can give feedback.
yeah, I will say that all of us probably deserve our own personal mentor tech. And maybe you have somebody who's your mentor tech. I hope that you consider that. You consider who helps me grow my understanding around the devices that I encounter every day. Who helps me with like tough questions when I don't understand how to figure something out? That's your mentor tech. And sometimes the very best mentor techs are kids, as we mentioned before, just because they're, that idea of being exploratory and risk takers. And so we hope that you think strategically about how in your community you probably have many, many people or kids who could help you and serve as your mentor tech. And here is the way.
Mentor tech. I need one.
You have one. She's right in this webinar. I know that.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have another question from Martha. She says, I am not an educator or a parent of a young child. How do I share this information with my community?
Okay, great. So we hope that you take like a nugget, Martha, away from, maybe it's at, maybe it's that you explore an app and talk to a friend, right? That you love. Maybe it's that you think about Liv's message and you share some of the work that she's done. Maybe it's that you consider the way in which you'd like to grow an idea that you have and you take a risk to share it more publicly using a platform that you feel comfortable on. Like, I feel like this idea of sparking change and being a change maker and growing a community is all about the type of message, Martha, that you have for the world. And Liv always says that, and I think this too, that every person has a unique story that they can share. And typically that story is tied to something that you love. And so maybe it's just that you haven't taken the risk to think about how you might share it. So we really hope that you identify a person that you could share a nugget tonight that sticks. I hope something sticks with Martha, right?
I know, I hope so, Martha.
And I hope you share it with somebody. That's the first step, right? To creating that community where you can share some of your own passions.
And actually what we're gonna show right now is an anchor chart that was created by the school in Taiwan where Pena teaches. And they analyzed a little bit list that I made about all the tips that I have for making my bits. And so they pulled out the things that they thought were the most important. So how can you make your intro catchy? What do you want to teach your audience? So that going back to that like short and sweet idea and adding pizzazz at the end, maybe adding a catchphrase, really, I think that the ending is is probably the most important part of the bit, besides sharing your message with the world, because it's the thing that they're going to remember you for, and the thing that you can keep consistent throughout every single one of your videos, and starting with a question like we did with you today.
Well, and I hope that when we think about sort of the message of all three webinars, we really do hope you consider like what brought you here, right? Like what brought you to this webinar, and what was it that made you feel like this was a space where you wanted to come and be a learner? Because whatever brought you here is probably the catalyst that will take you to your next step with the Spark Change message. That to me, a spark brought you here. And so we hope that you share that spark with another person in order to grow the Spark Change message. And we're like, Liv is making me aware of time and we're almost there. But we just wanted to take a zoom in, right, about this idea.
The left is that list that was just analyzed by the school in Taiwan, the one that I was just talking about.
And this idea of conversation around, analyzing, that the deepest kind of thinking is when we can critique and analyze, not criticize, but critique and analyze. So when you see something out there in the digital space that you love, like, what is it that you notice? That's what I was asking earlier. What is it that brought you here to Spark Change to this webinar? And then what is it that you continue to wonder about, as you think about our message? That we hope that what we draw from this time together is that there's an understanding about the power of student voice, the power of tech tools, and the power of your message when it's around a passion. And that we know that we're not going to have every answer. That's never our purpose of our time together, but instead to create like understanding and maybe even more questions that will lead you to, other sources who can help with that. We wanted to share one last example, and I think it's cute because it's about emojis and the power of an emoji. So yeah, so Charlotte my youngest daughter began communicating really even before she could like sequentially write sentences, and she began
With emojis and with icons.
Yeah, with icons and emojis. And so it's really cool to think about like how do emojis communicate tone and communicate are
How
part
they
of our
translate into a feeling.
yeah, how they train. And Liv has certain emojis that she uses a ton, and I definitely have emojis that I use a lot, with especially with certain people. I have a favorite emoji that we send. My best friend and I make an agreement that every day at the toughest part of our day we send one specific emoji, and it's a funny, we try to send to make each other feel connected and to feel better about our day. So we send the toilet emoji, and it's a funny, like between she and I, like
I did not
right
know
now,
that.
this day, I feel not so great, right? So there's always a point, and especially during work days, sometimes when I'm like, this is just going in the toilet. So we just send it as a laugh, right? We don't need to talk. We both know what it means. And then we agree to send back something that's going to like make one emoji that's going to make us feel better, right? So just this way in which Charlotte was able to communicate like whole stories using emojis, that hopefully sometimes those communicate part of our message in a really powerful way. And it's a very small thing that we can offer. So in summary,
In
right?
summary, just really all kids need is access to technology and access to platforms. They need to have time and not just using technology to assess, but also to create. And not only being able to share opportunities, but being able to collaborate with other people and getting feedback from them to help make their work even better.
So we hope that that's the message of all three of these webinars, that time, access, and share opportunities are just powerful in the space that you share with children, and that you share with somebody that you care about. And that when we consider just those three things, we can really make so many amazing opportunities happen for kids. And honestly, Liv has used the word heart beeps in all three webinars. And in case you didn't know, it's sort of this little term that Liv coined when she first started to use create her Liv. She's like, oh, mommy, all this feedback is giving me heart beeps. And
We're like, actually, let's take that word and we're gonna put it in a safe place, and we're gonna pull it out again later.
Pull it out again later. But I think that this is really powerful, that tech, when it's shared in a community, it should make you feel like that. Like you want to follow people who inspire you, the people who give you the best heart beeps, right? Think about their message and what is it that moves you. We hope that, that it really is. Liv always says, when people, they're like, what is a heart beep? She's like, it's just the best kind of happy. And I think that's very true. So I really challenge you, right? We leave you with a call to action, that in our time together, right? This call to action, we hope that you identify the sparks within yourself, and we hope that you take the risk to share that spark with somebody else who can help you grow your message. And maybe you might use some of the apps,
platforms and the apps that we recommended to you today.
We hope that you take the risk to explore, do some exploration and explore that, because that is really the best kind of story that you can share. Honestly, your story when shared with others. What? Oh yeah, I knew. I should have known that.
Sorry.
I should have known that she had some kind of animation in there, right? There we go.
It's gonna like shimmer a little bit.
Gonna shimmer, but your story does matter, and we hope that you take the risk to share
and
that,
carry that message back to your school,
or to your family, or to your organization, wherever that may be.
to your best friend. Send that one emoji every day.
And remember that kids deserve this, right? That we can be better humans, and we can help each other when we share those kinds of messages. And kids deserve that digital space to help them grow that. It's not going away. And so we hope that we can help them achieve those. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yay.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Liv. You guys are totally awesome, totally inspiring. I know my family and I are going to check out. I wrote down the long list of apps we're going to totally check out.
Well, now
Thank
you
you
have our
so much.
email, so you can
And yes, so now I can bug you with questions.
absolutely. But also thank you to Martha for the questions tonight.
Yes,
That
thank
was
you for your participation.
Yes, thank you, Martha, for being out there and for contributing. And I just, before we sign off, I just want to say one last huge thank you to Cynthia and Liv. Thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for being with us these last 3 sessions. I have learned a lot. I'm sure our audience has learned a lot. And thank you. Thank you for
thanks
being
so
with us.
much. Thank you,
All
everybody.
right.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.